What's going on, everybody? If you're from TikTok, I'm glad you made it here with us. Consider hitting that follow button because fantasy football videos like this are coming every single day during the season. You don't want to miss those. But I'm going to be sharing with you guys in this video the top players that have been falling down draft boards as of the last 2 weeks, and I'm going to give you my insight and my thoughts on if I think they should be falling that low or if it's fool's gold and you shouldn't be worried about them. The first dive here, and probably the worst, is Dawson Knox. He's fallen 2 full rounds from round 13 to averaging round 15 in fantasy football drafts now. A lot of people are getting excited about Dalton Kincaid, and I think there's a little bit too much excitement about him here. He is an upcoming rookie tight end. He has a lot of potential, but I don't really think they're going to abandon Dawson Knox just that quickly. I don't really think this fall is completely justified. Dalton Kincaid won't really come in and take all of the work day one. If anything, they'll just continue running a whole bunch of 12 personnel sets with 2 tight ends, and they did a lot of that last year. So as of right now, this is all making Dawson Knox into a pretty good late round pick here, and you can always trade him within the first couple weeks of the fantasy football season if you are worried about his future, because his potential will still be high then. Another player that has been falling a lot in the fantasy football draft is Kenneth Gainwell, and you might see a lot of big name platforms hyping him up over the past few weeks after his huge ADP bump from around 12 all the way down to 15 or 16. Miles Sanders leaving the team is making everyone think that he's going to be the workhorse back in this team now, but we have to remember he's always only been a passing down back. He's never really gotten more than 3 or 4 carries a game. Even when the top running back on the team at the time is injured, he really doesn't do much more than catching the ball. And you might be able to argue that in a deeper league, his receiving value might give him enough value to keep him at this ADP in these PPR leagues, but I do disagree with that. Considering that he's only really involved in the offense during the passing game, the Eagles rank 31st in running back targets out of the backfield, so he's already set up for failure. They also already have a star-studded enough roster, and they don't really need to be leaning on him to carry this offense. And obviously he'll get his occasional targets and carries and touchdowns every once in a while, but this is nothing to get too excited, and with this ADP bump down, I think it's pretty justified. Another guy falling down draft boards is Khalil Herbert from around 10 to around 11. This is coming from the news of the Bears coaching staff saying they want to use more of a committee system this year without David Montgomery. And this isn't that hard to believe considering their offense, and they have a hyper aggressive running quarterback in Justin Fields. So there's already not going to be too much value for the running back anyways. And this also might be because of their new running back they just drafted in the 4th round, Roschon Johnson. But Justin Fields is going to be the RB1 in this offense, and it looks like they're just going to go with a committee using Roschon and Khalil Herbert together. But as of last year, and pretty much every year with Justin Fields, they never target any running backs out of the backfield, so their receiving value is already capped at that. But this is just a really tough and kind of an unfortunate situation for him, because in the times that David Montgomery was out and wasn't playing, he filled in pretty well, but it doesn't look like the situation is really matching the upside here, and it'll probably be a committee. With the way this offense runs, I would probably stay away from this. Another interesting fall that I wanted to add into this video is pretty much every quarterback. Quarterbacks have been falling down draft boards this year, and the only 3 quarterbacks that haven't made a significant drop down are actually really interesting. Lamar, which you could probably guess, but also Anthony Richardson and Matthew Stafford. But every other quarterback in the NFL has fallen down draft boards, and this might be an early telltale sign about what this year's draft is going to look like. So I wouldn't be planning on going out and grabbing a quarterback super early, and this is just something I wanted to share with you guys because I found it and I thought it was a pretty interesting take and something that's very important to keep in mind after you do know this information. But back to the actual players, another guy that has fallen a pretty significant amount is Kenneth Walker. He's fallen 7 spots down in the 4th round, which may not seem like a lot, but if you're being drafted that high in the draft, you really shouldn't be falling considerable amount of rounds. But with that being said, I'm really not that high on Ken Walker this year with Zach Charbonnet and McIntosh coming into this running back room. I think Walker's floor is a lot lower than most people that aren't really doing research like this believe it to be. It's going to be really hard for him to repeat the year he had last year. He had no competition in the backfield. They gave it to him and it was his. He's going to lose a lot of his receiving value, and he's going to be forced to split a bit of the carries now. He might still be the leader of the running back room, but he's not going to get a full workhorse role like we saw last year. So he's been falling down towards the end of the 4th and 5th rounds. As of right now, I would stay away from him just simply because there's more solid prospects at that point in the draft. And I'm going to get to you guys a whole bunch of draft strategy videos that will be coming out later, but that's for another video, so subscribe if you haven't already and you want to see that. But another guy that has been falling over the past 2 weeks in ADP is Darren Waller. He's moved 5 spots down in round 7 to round 8, and I'm not 100% sure why people aren't believing in him and he's dropping in these drafts as of right now. He's going to be the sticking point of this Giants offense, which they haven't had in a while. Their wide receiver room is a bit lacking, and their offense has really just come from Saquon Barkley. But Darren Waller is basically a wide receiver that goes in your tight end slot, and we all know that tight end spots are really just hard to come by, and kind of a pain to fill every week. And I like this drop for our sake on this channel. I mean, I hope he keeps dropping because this just means better value for us over here. And I want to leave you guys off with a couple players that I presume are going to keep falling or start falling in the next coming weeks to keep you guys ahead of the curve. Starting out with Gabe Davis. He's actually trending up in draft boards, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me considering Kincaid is going up in draft boards. He's never had over 50 receptions on a season, and he just proves again and again that he's not that guy we want him to be. And it doesn't really sound too bad, but when you look into it, he's going and being drafted ahead of multiple wide receiver ones on their own respective teams, and it's just a bit too high. I think people will start noticing that, and he's going to start dropping down draft boards, but I want you guys to be aware of that, and I also want you guys to be aware of this next guy named Kirk, and he's been going in the mid-5th round as of now. I like him as a prospect, but there are a lot of mouths to feed on this upcoming Jaguars offense, and so it's a bit too early for me to draft where he's being drafted right now. The only way I can see him living up to his high ADP of round 4 or 5 is if Calvin really were to get injured. But these are some players that have been falling down draft boards, and I wanted to get them out to you guys so you can start thinking for yourself when fantasy football drafts do come around, and you gotta have a little bit of information before they start as well. But I'm gonna be doing videos like this all throughout the fantasy football season, and I don't want you guys to miss them, and it's good to be one step ahead of everything. So hit that sub button if you haven't already, but I do appreciate you watching this video.